Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Guess where I am? Arrowhead Harley-Davidson. And I'm here because I heard they've got a 2020 Breakout, and I was talking to Rob about it, and they've also got a 2016 Breakout in their inventory, so I figured this would be a good opportunity to see the bikes side by side and get a comparison of them. So let's head on inside here and see what's up. Alright, let's see what we've got going on in here. Oh, alright, there they are. Hey Rob, how's it going, man?
What's up, brother?
Same old. So I heard you're gonna tell us a little bit about these Breakouts.
Yeah, we'll do a little comparison, old versus new.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna hand you the phone.
All right.
Since you know these bikes better than anyone else I know. So yeah, tell us what we're looking at here.
So we have two Softail Breakouts. The gray bike on the left is a 2016, and the orange bike on the right is a 2020. So I figured real quickly we'd talk about some of the similarities and differences between the two. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what's the same. So as I mentioned, they're both Softail Breakouts. So now we're going to talk about what's different. No, in all seriousness, they're very, very different machines, despite a very similar appearance. And I will tell you some of the similarities that exist between them, and then we'll look at what the differences really are. The first thing that stands out, I'm sure, is you'll notice that they're running the same size wheel up the front, and they're actually running the same size wheel in the back. So they're both rocking the 21-inch wheel on the front, and they're both rocking the 240-millimeter rear wheel. So they have a big fat rear end on them. These bikes have the same rake and trail, so the handling is very similar, but the suspension makes for some very interesting differences between them. If you look at the 2016 model, you'll notice we've got the twin cam 103 motor. So it's 103 cubic inch. It is a dry sump setup, so your oil is actually located in this area here and pumped into and back out of the motor. On a new version of that bike, you actually have a wet sump, so all that oil is maintained down in the lower end of the motor and is actually pumped through and back down. The cool advantage to that is on an older bike where the oil is stored directly below your seat, hot oil mind you, on a newer bike there's no oil reservoir kept directly below the rider, so it makes for a cooler, more comfortable ride. Okay, so we look at the two engines. Let's talk about that a little bit more. So you have the twin cam motor, which is just what it implies. You have two cams operating the push rods, which operate the valve train on the motorcycle, and on the new motorcycle they went back to a single cam design. So what advantage do you have there? With a single cam design, the theory is that you have less opportunity for parasitic power loss. So the juice you're getting off the crank is making it to the rear wheel. Whereas with an older machine, you actually lose a little bit as you have a transfer of power between the cams and then further back to the wheel. Another big difference between the two motors is on a twin cam motor, you have one valve inlet and one valve exhaust on each head. Whereas on the Milwaukee 8, you have two in and two out per head. Hey, what does that do for you? Well, you're moving a lot more air, so you have a more efficient machine, you have a more cool running machine as well. So let's talk about another similarity here real quick. Back tire, we already mentioned, you've got a 240 millimeter rear. They make for a very large rear tire. I've heard customers say that that impacts handling, and while I certainly agree that is accurate to a degree, one thing that I always tell people to keep in mind is even though it's a large 240 millimeter rear, it is very much a curved surface, so it's like a large sport bike tire. So the reality is if you want to get into the turn, you can get into the turn. I myself own a 2013 CVO Breakout, and I've been told more than once that the Dyna kids couldn't keep up with me. So if you're going to ride it like you stole it, it will still do it for you. Do you have to muscle it a little bit? Absolutely. So, further differences. Milwaukee 8, obviously, larger displacement, more horsepower, more torque, runs cooler, more efficient. You'll also notice that between the two bikes, they've gotten a little bit different in how they display. So on the 2017 and older model, you actually had an analog speedometer on the bike, whereas on the new 2018 and up, you actually have an all digital display. Now both of these will give you details like speed, trip, remaining fuel. You have some odometers in there you can play with, but they've gotten a little more modern with the new version of the bike. They also went with an LED headlight, whereas the old bike had a standard kind of halogen headlight. So there are some subtle differences between the machines, but the biggest thing that stands out to me above all else is handling. So you're still running a single disc brake on the front, and you've got obviously one disc in the rear. But the thing that really makes this bike different is, and it's hard to see, or we can't see it really from the outside, is you've got a monoshock setup on the new Softails. So anybody that's ever ridden sport bikes or raced or ridden dirt bikes knows that a monoshock is going to produce far superior handling. The old style Softails, you actually had two shocks that were located underneath the frame down in this area, and they're non-adjustable. There's not a whole lot you can do to adjust for preload, so the weight of the rider, weight of the passenger, baggage, etc. Whereas on the new model, you actually have an emulsion shock and it's fully adjustable. You can dial it in and out on the go even if you need to stiffen up or lighten up that suspension some. All in all, if I were going to pick one, I would certainly say go with the 2020. You've got a hotter motor in terms of torque and horsepower that runs cooler in terms of rider comfort and reliability. You've got better suspension, both front and rear. You've got updated electronics. You've got updated LED lighting, which is considerably brighter and a much more white, pure light. But they're both great bikes. There's quite a few models now that bear the names of previous Softails, and the reality is, in my opinion, a new Softail is in no way related to an old Softail. The only thing they share is the name and the fact that you just can't see where the shocks are hidden. Outside of that, you have a far, far superior machine.
How about we show these folks what it's like for someone that's 5'5"
Sure.
to sit on it?
So we've got Bryce, who's a nice tall rider here. All 5 feet 5 inches of fury of him.
Now I assume that shock is probably set on a middle range preload right now.
Yeah, most of them from the factory certainly aren't dialed up for a 250-pound rider.
Right, so if I dial it back to like what my slim is set at on the first setting for my weight, this is probably going to sag a little bit more, but I am literally almost heel down on both sides. So for those of you that are subscribed or are watching this video and you're similar height, rest assured you'll be able to handle this bike. And then, you know, worst comes to worst, you can always pimp stand it, because look, now I'm flat-footed.
Absolutely. So I'm just a hair over 5'5" myself, and I flat foot any Softail model that we currently make. I don't need to lower them. I don't need to soften the suspension. I don't need to modify my seat. I can do it in Chuck Taylors. I don't need to do it in riding boots. So the Softail obviously is a popular line for real tall guys like you and me.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I'm going to take that phone back here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I appreciate you taking the time and showing us around these bikes. And before I take off, I wanted to ask you something, because I kind of heard through the grapevine that you might be getting a promotion in your own store here coming up. Can you tell me about that?
Right around the corner. So Roadrunner Harley-Davidson is going in at 159th and McDowell. So you're basically at the 303 I-10 interchange. And I'll be moving down there and taking over as the sales manager / store manager.
Awesome,
I'm
man.
looking forward to the opportunity. I'm looking forward to another location, another opportunity to sell bikes.
Right on. So we'll be doing some videos there too, I assume.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, congrats on that, man. And
much appreciated.
again, thanks for the time.
Absolutely.
And all right, guys, you saw it here at Arrowhead Harley-Davidson. Go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, stay safe out there.